Welcome back to the Patrick Regan Show here on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network and News Talk 98.7 WOKI. This segment is usually pretty short, but I have a couple of things I wanted to get to before we wrap up this week, having to do with the bumper music there. For those of you who don't recognize that, that's Weezer with Hash Pipe. This first story ran on the Associated Press and came out this week, and the Justice Department said Thursday it would not challenge state laws in Colorado and Washington that allow for the medical and recreational use of marijuana as long as drug sales don't conflict with a new set of federal enforcement policies. The 8 new enforcement policies range from preventing the distribution of marijuana to minors to preventing sales revenue from going to criminal enterprises, gangs, and cartels. They also aim to prevent the diversion of marijuana outside of states where it is legal under state law. Thursday's announcement follows comments President Obama made in December where he said it does not make sense for the federal government to go after recreational drug users in a state that has legalized recreational use of small amounts of marijuana. States that had effectively legalized marijuana had been awaiting the guidance from the Justice Department. Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper said he understands how difficult the issue has been for federal officials. Today's announcement shows the federal government is respecting the will of the Colorado voters, he said in a statement. Other top priority enforcement areas include stopping state-authorized marijuana activity from being used as a cover for trafficking other illegal drugs and preventing violence in the use of firearms in cultivation and distribution of marijuana. I don't know how you use a firearm in the cultivation, but anyway, the announcement follows last year's first in the nation legalization of recreational marijuana use by Colorado and Washington. In the aftermath of the moves by the two states, Attorney General Eric Holder launched a review of marijuana enforcement policy. The issue was whether the states should be blocked from operating marijuana markets on the grounds that actively regulating an illegal substance conflicts with federal drug law that bans it. A Pew Research Center poll in March found 60% of Americans think that the federal government shouldn't enforce federal anti-marijuana laws in states where its use has been approved. Younger people who tend to vote Democratic are especially prone to that view, but opponents are worried these moves will lead to more use by young people. Now, in a related story, Vermont has become the 9th state to lift the restrictions on the production of hemp. Now, the difference between industrial hemp and marijuana is that industrial hemp has been cultivated to emphasize the qualities that make it useful for businesses. The THC level, which is what makes people high, is not as great as in regular marijuana that's used for personal use purposes. Since it's been illegal to grow in the United States, though, we've been importing almost half of Canada's hemp production. Half. That doesn't make much sense, does it? But my main point in this is what happened in Vermont. The law it passed completely nullified federal laws regarding the growing of this plant. Now, the law states in part, hemp is an agricultural product which may be grown as a crop, produced, possessed, and commercially traded in Vermont pursuant to the provisions of this chapter. The cultivation of hemp shall be subject to and comply with the requirements of the accepted agricultural practices adopted under Section 4810 of this title. Now, while Vermont is the 9th state to pass a law allowing hemp, it is the first state to not include a stipulation that the federal government has to first lift the ban on its cultivation. Now, what you need to take away from these stories is that the federal government will back down when the states decide to start taking action on their own. Just for the people who don't listen to this show a lot, here's the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, or reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Now, if the Constitution doesn't mention drug regulation, then the federal government should not be doing it. Plain and simple. Jefferson wrote in a Kentucky Resolution of 1798, the several states composing the United States of America are not united on the principle of unlimited submission to their general government, the federal government. The government created by this compact was not made the exclusive or final judge of the extent of the powers delegated to itself, since that would have made its discretion and not the Constitution the measure of its powers. What he's saying is the federal government is not the final judge on the extent of its power. The people, the citizens of this country are. They say, Patrick, the courts have held the federal government can regulate drugs and other things not mentioned in the Constitution. Well, look, if the federal government gets to decide the extent of its own power through its own judicial branch, then the people of the states don't have any way to hold it back. If you want a quick and timely example, especially given what today is opening day at the University of Tennessee, if you're cheering for the University of Tennessee football team to win today, would you be comfortable if the referee and all the other officials were employees of and being paid by, exclusively by, Austin Peay University, their opponent? Well, that's what's happening when we give this complete power to the Supreme Court in the final say as to what's constitutional or not. It's a member of the federal government by its definition. So when it's giving the federal government power, it's giving itself power. See, it's playing for its own team. And then we walk up to it and ask it, hey, what should be the rules here? Is the federal government abiding by the Constitution? And the Supreme Court comes out and a lot of times say, yes, it is, but they're the federal government too. That's what I mean by you're having referees from the other team tell you if what the other team's doing is right or not. That's not how it works. The people are the final arbiters of that. We, the citizens, are the ones giving permission to the federal government to do things, not the other way around. All right, we are rolling up here on the end of the Patrick Riggin Show. If you want more information about us, you can go over to our Facebook page. It's at facebook.com/Patrick Riggin Show. Again, that's facebook.com/Patrick Riggins. That's RIGGINS show. And if you're on Facebook, you can be sure and hit that like button so you'll be kept updated as to what's going on here at the show. If you're not on Facebook, that's fine. Just still go to that page, facebook.com/Patrick Riggin Show, and just ignore all the, hey, you need to join Facebook. Just ignore that, and you can read everything on that page. You can also go, if you missed something, you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com, again, /Patrick Riggin Show. And that's where all of our archive shows are, youtube.com/Patrick Riggin Show. And you can also email us, patrickrigginshow@gmail.com. And you can also drop a card of letter here at WLKI at Oak Kingston Pike in Knoxville. They'll get it to me. So as we go out this week, remember, liberty begins with you, in your head, in your mind. Join me next Saturday afternoon at 4. We'll be fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.
As a dreamer of dreams and a traveling man, I have chalked up many a mile.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on the Patrick Riggin Show.